Tyramine is a naturally occurring trace amine found in high concentrations within common fermented foods like aged cheese and red wine. Despite being a potent vasoactive compound, consuming these foods rarely triggers a physiological response in the human body. The protection comes from monoamine oxidase, specifically MAO enzymes patrolling the gastrointestinal tract and liver. These rapidly metabolize tyramine upon entry. Because of this intense first-pass metabolism, only a microscopic inactive fraction ever escapes to reach the systemic bloodstream. Under baseline homeostasis, our digestive enzymes act as a metabolic firewall, preventing dietary trace amines from interacting with the nervous system. This dynamic reverses for patients taking monoamine oxidase inhibitors to treat depression. These medications deactivate MAO enzymes in the gut and liver, tearing down the metabolic barrier. Without MAO, active tyramine survives digestion and floods into systemic circulation. The molecules travel the vascular network, reaching the outer boundary of sympathetic nerve terminals. Once tyramine crosses this boundary, it initiates a cellular hijack. The resulting surge in norepinephrine triggers immediate hypertensive crises, followed by a rapid, acute loss of drug responsiveness. To understand why this happens, we have to look at exactly how a simple dietary molecule overrides the structural programming of a presynaptic terminal. Disabling a single enzyme class with an MAOI transforms a benign compound from cheese into a sympathomimetic agent with direct access to adrenergic control centers. Bridging the boundary of the sympathetic terminal is the norepinephrine transporter, or NET. Extracellular tyramine uses this transporter to enter the neuronal cytoplasm. Inside, tyramine normally faces mitochondrial MAOA, an enzyme that destroys stray amines. With the MAOI active, this internal barrier is dead, causing cytoplasmic tyramine levels to spike unchecked. The terminal partitions neurotransmitters into vesicles. Most sit in a large reserve pool, while a small, readily releasable pool docks near the active zone. The accumulating tyramine is forcefully pumped into these readily releasable vesicles by the vesicular monoamine transporter. This creates a direct kinetic displacement. For every tyramine molecule that enters a vesicle, a molecule of stored norepinephrine is kicked out into the free cytoplasm. The first phase of the hijack turns the cell's own storage mechanism against itself, building a high concentration of free, unpackaged norepinephrine inside the terminal. While displacement creates the supply of free norepinephrine, tyramine simultaneously acts as a high-affinity agonist at specific intracellular receptors. Located entirely inside the presynaptic terminal is the trace amine-associated receptor 1, or TAAR1. When cytoplasmic tyramine binds to TAAR1, it activates a GS and GQ-coupled signaling cascade. This cascade induces adenylyl cyclase and CAMP accumulation, culminating in the activation of protein kinase C. Protein kinase C performs a critical mechanical action, attaching a phosphate group directly to the membrane-bound norepinephrine transporter. This forces the transporter to completely reverse its directional flow. Normally, neurotransmitter release is calcium-dependent, requiring vesicles to fuse with the membrane. This process entirely bypasses that. The release is non-exocytotic. The massive pool of displaced cytoplasmic norepinephrine is pumped down its concentration gradient, out of the cell, and into the synaptic cleft. This transporter-mediated efflux of norepinephrine is the direct mechanical cause of the extreme peripheral vascular pressure response, known as a hypertensive crisis. At the clinical level, this sudden efflux of norepinephrine immediately manifests as a dangerous systemic spike in vascular pressure. Yet there is a paradox. If tyramine is continuously ingested or administered, the hypertensive response does not hold. It rapidly crashes. This is tachyphylaxis, a rapid, acute decrease in physiological responsiveness to a drug after repeated administration over a short period. This chart maps the clinical kinetic data of repeated tyramine exposure across 3 distinct time intervals. At the first dose, time 1, the patient experiences a massive, immediate spike in blood pressure, but the returns diminish quickly. Dose 2 yields a significantly blunted pressure spike, and by dose 3, the blood pressure line remains flat. The TAAR1 receptors and reversed NET transporters are still fully active, so why does the sympathetic output suddenly drop? Tachyphylaxis is driven by the rapid kinetic exhaustion of the readily releasable pool of norepinephrine. This active pool is physically small. it is vulnerable to continuous tyramine exchange, draining much faster than the larger reserve pool can replenish it. At the first dose, the vesicles are full of active norepinephrine. By the second dose, they are severely depleted, with tyramine physically taking its place. By the third dose, the storage vesicles are progressively filled with pharmacologically inactive tyramine. It acts as a pseudo-transmitter, meaning any subsequent reverse transport only dumps inactive molecules into the synapse. Finally, the trapped tyramine acts as a permissive blockade. It occupies the internal storage sites, preventing newly synthesized norepinephrine from being stored. Tyramine's dual action, first as a displacer of norepinephrine, then as an inert occupant of its storage space, creates a kinetic cycle that forces the sympathetic nerve terminal to overload and then exhaust its signaling capacity.